I stay off camera.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the March 19th, 2026 edition of the Technical Advisory Council of the Confidential Computing Consortium. As you all probably know, we're an open and collaborative bunch. Everybody is welcome to contribute constructively here in the meeting and in our open source projects and our various special interest groups. We abide by the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation. You can read about that at linuxfoundation.org/antitrust-policy. Here's the agenda that we are looking at for today. Scott was unable to join us due to something that came up. So I'll be covering for him today, and then he'll probably bring his tech talk at a future meeting. So we'll not be doing the platform ownership endorsements talk today. Otherwise, I think things are pretty much unchanged, and the main, I guess it's not listed here, but the main thing should be going through the documents. So we have our blueprints that we've been working on. And any other topics that people anticipated that aren't on here today?
So not necessarily a new topic, but I have to confess, unfortunately, with everything that's going on in the world, I have been pulled into a number of other things. So I haven't actually made any progress so far on the blueprints beyond what we discussed on the last meeting, I'm afraid.
Okay. It's great that you still got that draft out there, though, and I don't know that we got you feedback on that draft. So that's maybe something that we can just do live and kind of make use of this time as a live working session.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, look, hopefully, well, I'm hoping things, or at least in the work stream I'm working, will calm down a little bit next week and give me a bit more time to get back to focusing on things like that.
Okay, great. So I don't think we have anything to vote on, so I don't think I'm going to take formal attendance here, but I do see most of you are present, so that's great. And I see Kevin here stepping in, I guess, for Ahmed. So nice to see you, Kevin.
Hey, it's been a while.
Yeah. Hopefully we can catch you back up. So let me know if you have any questions as we get underway, if you're lacking context for anything. But if there's other people who are joining today, maybe for the first time or haven't been here for a long time and would like to introduce themselves, this is the part of the meeting where you get to say how you like to be addressed, where you're joining from, and what your interest in confidential computing is.
Hey guys, I joined today mostly to assist Scott on the POE discussion, but since he's not able to make it, I think we'll join in 2 weeks, right? Because this is a bi-weekly meeting.
That's right.
Yeah,
right?
it's fortnightly. So
okay. But to quickly introduce myself, I'm the software architect working on mostly SGX and TDX remote attestation, and mostly on software and services, so DCAP and DCAP services.
Great to have you on the call today, Piotr.
Thanks, Dan.
Which company from? Just to be sure.
Intel.
Intel. Excellent. I assumed, but I don't want to over assume. So.
All right. I think everybody else is pretty regular attendee, but if I accidentally glossed over your name, feel free to interrupt me as we move on. All right, so last time we got an update from our colleague at NIST on the 8000 series document there, where he's going to be seeking some inputs, and I think we'll have a comment on that as we get into the announcements. And then we checked in on these blueprints documents, and that should be kind of the bulk of what we focus on today. And I think last week I introduced this fourth document, and maybe we'll spend a little time looking at that as well. We finalized the NIST RFI, so Mike did a great job of kind of tying together 1,000 open threads, and we were able to finalize that, and that is shipped off to NIST.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone for their involvement with that. This is absolutely a team effort, and I'm really proud to be able to present, this sort of stuff from the CCC and from the TAC, who's absolutely pushed this. So thank you everyone who've helped, talked about stuff, put comments in either on the document or in our discussion. So thank you to everyone for that, and for Dan for allowing that to all take place here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great work from everybody. And then we kind of talked about the communication mechanisms that we have here. So we've got just the basics. We've got a mail list, we've got the GitHub, and we've got Slack. So if you're not already on the Slack and you are a TAC voting member, we need you to be on that so that we can have short discussions. None of those three things that I mentioned are high traffic, so they're really not going to impact your day. If you're not yet on any of those, you should be able to find the links here under Get Involved. So there's the mail list, there's the Slack.
And Dan, just to clarify, you don't need to be a voting member to be on the Slack. Everyone is welcome, but we particularly need the voting members on, correct?
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, everybody's welcome on the Slack. But in particular, if you are a voting member, part of your responsibility is to be on the Slack and on the mail list and on the and on our GitHub. So our list of TAC members kind of cycles periodically as people swap in and out for others at their company. And I don't think we actually have an up-to-date list in here. We had tried to kind of track that using this code owners file, and I know that is sadly out of date. So maybe we'll spend some time next meeting kind of cleaning up the Git membership.
Dan, by the way, maybe surprisingly and maybe not surprisingly, it's not very easy to access Slack at Google, for example. So I'm still working through the process of getting permission to use it. So I think I'm getting close, but no guarantees.
All right. Well, do whatever your company requires of you for processes. I know that something that has worked for me is to have a separate open source identity, and then I have connected to third-party applications over the years, like Slack, using my external open source identity. Gmail, for example, lets you create accounts pretty easily. But do stick to whatever your company requires of you. And thanks for the heads up, though, that you've got some obstacles to go through. All right, so Mike, you had an announcement. Please
I've actually got a couple of announcements, if I may. So the first one is that Rian has left the CCC, not because he's leaving the LF, but because he's so good that the CNCF wanted him full-time. So sadly, he's moved over to there. Renew is also Renew. Do you want to share your plans as well?
We've got a slide for Renew and Rian coming up.
Oh, I apologize. I hadn't realized that was there. In which case, we could talk about that later on. So the other thing I want to talk about is news about the Confidential Computing Summit. Things are a bit quiet for a while, but we can now announce that it is going to be co-hosted this year by the Linux Foundation events. So it's owned by the Linux Foundation. That is not the same as saying it is owned by the CCC. It is not. We still need to work out what we're doing about sponsorship and things like that. It's actually a bit complex. Let me see if I can find a link to the summit. Here we go.
Put in the chat.
I'll put it. Oh, someone's already put it. Renaud, thank you. Yep. So we are currently working out with the GB and the outreach what to do there. But I noticed that the call for papers is there. Please. Now is a good time to get some submissions in terms of that. So I strongly recommend that you, your colleagues, your ecosystem, your partners, your customers are all putting in CFPs. Let me see if I can find the program call for proposals. I'll put that in the thing. There we go. So that's there. So please do that. As someone noticed, it finishes fairly soon. So let's get that going. This will be in San Francisco. I think it's the 23rd, 24th of June. More information should be forthcoming fairly soon. This is only recently broken information news. I only learned about it a few days ago, and it went public 2 or 3 days ago. So if you, particularly if you're a Premier member, and please talk to your GB rep about the things that are going on there. We'll give out provide information as we can. It's all a bit murky, it's all a bit difficult to understand. We don't have all the information yet. I don't think people are sort of hiding stuff. It's just it's all happened very quickly. And I had a 20-minute discussion with the head of LF events yesterday to try and surface some of that information, but we still got ongoing questions. But it's happening. It'll be, I think, at the San Francisco Mint, which looks like kind of a fun place to be doing it. And that's the current plan. Does anyone have any questions about that? I may not be able to answer them, but if you do, please let me know. Nope, that's it. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry,
and then did you have
couldn't find my mute button. Just a real quick question: is the former commercial partner that was sponsoring it in the past, are they still going to be involved, or are they not going to be involved? Just taking a back seat? Can you tell us a little bit more?
So Opaque is co-hosting it with the LF this year. Exactly what happens next year is still to be formally announced. I don't have anything that I don't have anything definitive to share at this point. So we'll have to wait and see.
That's enough. Just wanted to hear that they were still involved. Thanks.
They are still involved. Yes, thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
and then
Alex.
did you also have something NIST related? Maybe that special publication that you said something. No, maybe it was just the CCC you talked about.
Oh, well, other than to say that I've not heard anything back from Mike Bartok. I did send him an email. If anyone has heard anything back, please share it. I think they just may be moving a bit slower than we're used to, maybe, which is fine. I don't think we're being ignored. But if anyone else has anything to share on that, I'd love to hear about it. But I've not heard anything specific.
I'll take an action item to reach out to him. I haven't been trying to get in touch, but I will.
Thank you. Is it also worth sharing the information about the ISO stuff? There's just an overlap, Alec, while we're here.
So let's put something on the agenda for next week, and I'll come better prepared to talk about it. There's some things that we still have. Okay. There's a statement that we're trying to draft together with Benjamin now, and once I get that statement drafted and Bod approves it, then I'll share a little bit more.
Spoiler: Alec is working with the ISO folks, and things are going well. I think it's
yeah, and I don't want to take anything from Year. Year is the author of the paper, and so I'm just coming in as an assistant to Year and trying to lend in a little bit more voice from the CCC. But certainly, Year is perfectly capable of representing CCC views. I'm just giving one more shoulder to the wheel.
Great.
Well said. Okay, so remember that we'll put ISO on the agenda for next time. In fact, why don't we just take a moment so that don't forget that. Oops, 2026, how's that? We will throw it over here for now. All right, thanks for letting me do some bookkeeping so that we don't forget about that.
If I might suggest, Dan,
yep.
put it on the week where I'm going to be co-hosting, and we can do it all at once, which is the very next week.
All right.
Coming. Well, next one, not next week, 2 weeks time, right?
Right.
Yes, hopefully.
Yep, understood.
Cool.
Okay, and then this is just a fun little news note. I don't know if people are familiar, but the company that I work for has a conference that they all get very excited about, and so the link that I'll drop into here. So probably try to watch YouTube.
Dan, not they. that we get very
I
excited
am trying to be
about.
independent. It's
Oh,
absolutely
okay.
not top of mind right now.
Okay, fair enough. So you're this is in your status as the chair of the TAC. Okay, I get you now.
Right. So yes, I am strongly affiliated with the company NVIDIA, whose conference is going on this week. The thing that certainly caught my attention, but might also be interesting to the community, is the CEO in the keynote makes some very strong mentions of confidential computing, and you will see confidential computing right next to his head for a time at the time code in that video. But set that up for maybe your evening enjoyment watching. So I'm not encouraging people to watch videos during our actual meeting here.
This is just how Dan spreads the propaganda. Well done, Dan.
Yeah, very good.
I think it is good for everybody when our CEOs talk about the technology that we are working on. It's nice to see it elevated.
That is true.
100%. I'm just ribbing you.
I appreciate it. Okay, I think that is all of the announcements. Unless anybody else had another announcement. I guess one thing that we meant to go over that didn't make it onto these lists was OC3. So I think it might be interesting to have an OC3 recap maybe next week, or if people want to just, we don't have links to the videos yet, so it's kind of hard to direct people to content.
Yeah, why don't we wait till next time? I think that's a good call. Hopefully people will still remember it.
Mm-hmm. Though I'm happy to open the floor for a minute or two to anybody who had like a big takeaway that they want people to be aware of from OC3. So we kind of have that in mind as we head into the next 2 weeks here.
Oh, Dan, the link you put for the YouTube, it doesn't work.
Works for me.
It works for me.
Works for me as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you're blocked. That's awkward. They know where you're coming from. They can block you.
I like it.
Okay. Any big takeaways from OC3 for anyone? So I thought it was another good.
Sorry, after you, Dan.
Sorry, I thought it was another great conference. It's really convenient to be able to attend that remotely, and nice that they now have the in-person option as well. I know that some of us attending remotely may have missed some chunks while technical difficulties ensued, but Mike had a great talk, and several other people from the consortium had a great talk as well. Great talks, that is.
Can I also add one thing? I liked that the speakers were quite technical, or more technical than I expected. Especially I appreciated Simon Johnson from Intel coming in and giving good and honest statements about what they can do and what they are doing. And I think we need more of that. I was sometimes missing this in past conferences, not to like name specific one, but like past versions of these type of events, because it's easy to just send some fluff there, right? And I really appreciate it. So folks, please do encourage your leaderships also to bring in some technical people to these events, and then we can have some honest discussions about where we are, where do we need to go, and what gaps do we have, and what do we do to address them. So I thought that was refreshing. So props to Intel here. That was really nice to hear.
Yeah,
I was going to say something similar, Fritz. That the amount of technical stuff that's going on was really helpful and very positive. Also, some very interesting stuff in as case studies around Web3, which I thought were very interesting going on there. We have a hand up as well, Dan.
Yeah, Osama.
Yeah, hello. I just want to add to what Fritz was saying. Completely agree with him. I think the thing that the community currently is lacking, or has been lacking before, I won't say currently, has been lacking before, has been the honesty part. And if you remember, like I came back in tech, gave a talk about exactly these things which Simon was talking about. Number one, geolocation, And the response from TAC was, hey, that's actually not a technical property. Now you see Simon Johnson talking in OC3 about, hey, we have a plan for doing something. Some people talking about, like Intel talking about, hey, we have this kind of POE thing, and I think which will be presented here as well. I talked about the attestation is not hardware based. That's a fluffy thing, as Fritz called it. Like Simon Johnson actually had a point about, hey, we have a plan for doing hardware based attestation and we are moving towards that. So I think that kind of honesty I really appreciate. And that's the way forward, that we are working towards things, but not to show that everything is done. Like it's not yet hardware based. It's moving towards that. That should be really, really clear, and that I really appreciated in that.
Yeah, it was a good talk. And I look forward to the link for that going up so that everybody can see it. I want to watch it a second time because I did not take close enough notes. I didn't anticipate Simon divulging as much of their roadmap as they did. So that was great.
There was a lot there. I was equally surprised, and I knew some of it was coming. So, yeah.
Okay. So please get your maybe notes in order for 2 weeks from now, and we'll try to allocate some time. I know as we flipped to the schedule for next week that we do have a project update. So we'll want to confirm that we do have an NARCS maintainer committed for that time. And then we'll have more blueprints dialogue, but we should have enough time to talk a little bit more about some of the OC3 content. And maybe also, depending on Scott's schedule, we might get the POE discussion, which was also a topic at OC3. So some combination of those things next session. All right, on to a couple more announcements. So as Mike was teeing up for us, we are going to temporarily lose Renew as she departs on maternity leave shortly. So congratulations ahead of time to Renew.
Thank you, Dan. I shall be away from March 30. Just to be precise, I'm available next week as well. Post that, yeah, I will be away for 39 weeks. Thank you.
It's great. Well, we will eagerly anticipate your return.
But don't come back too soon, equally.
Right. Enjoy your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. And I think Rian is not on, but I would like to say thank you to Rian for, he's been with us, I believe, since late 2023 is my recollection, which makes him sort of an old timer around here. And he's been somebody that I could rely on heavily since that time, and I'll be missing him while he moves on to work full-time for the CNCF. One of the first things that I learned from Rian was how to say thank you in Afrikaans. So for those who don't know, Rian is based in South Africa, and I have not worked a lot with people who actually live in South Africa. I've worked with a few people who have emigrated from there, but what he taught me was a very memorable mnemonic, so I thought I would share it here, which is buy a donkey. So for those familiar with German or other variants of Germanic languages, you might hear like the danke for thank you. So this is buy a danke, buy a donkey. So there's your Afrikaans for today, and buy a danke, Rian.
I'm going to need to have to just step out for a few minutes. I do apologize.
Okay, well.
The jokes are just too good. People are having to leave.
It was emotional in a way that I didn't anticipate it. All right, we had a board meeting yesterday. There's not a lot to download from that we didn't already talk about. I think probably the juiciest bit is the ISO discussion that we'll have next time or in 2 sessions. Otherwise, the board was, I think, appreciative to hear that we have such good engagement going on right now with the TAC and the documents that we've been working on. And I guess that's where I intended to talk about OC3. PRs. So this is a bit dry, but after every meeting, our minutes go up, and one of our little responsibilities is making sure that we're minuting the meetings correctly. Really the substantive thing is whenever we vote on something. Otherwise, sort of informational things, we kind of try to capture best effort. What I'm asking the co-chairs to do is you look at the last session's minutes and review them and make sure they're accurate. That gives you the context to help plan for the session that you will be co-chairing. And that way it also helps that everybody's kind of taking a turn going through the minutes because they are kind of dry. We do have a bit of a backlog here. We used to spend meeting time going through the minutes together, and I decided that's not probably a perfect use of everybody's time. So we're not going to go through these right now, but as your rotation comes around to help chair these meetings, this is one of the responsibilities. Any questions about that? Okay, now let's go ahead and get into something more interesting. So we have content available for Blueprint B and Blueprint C. I see we do not yet have comments, I think. Is this comments? No. So I would like to make use of our time that we've set aside for CCC work to do some reading and editing. I don't know if Renee or is Mingshen on? I don't see Mingshen on. Renee or Simon, one of you prefers that we start with one doc or the other?
Up to you. And there are a couple of comments, but mostly between myself and Mingshen there, but not much.
Okay. Well, why don't we let people sort of self-choose between B and C, and let's spend there's B into the chat and C into the chat. And let's spend a little quiet time reading for, say, 10 minutes, and then we'll come back together here. So
cool.
For those on the recording, feel free to skip ahead 10 minutes.
Dan, could you please repost the links? I don't. I've lost the chat because I had to go back and come in. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, it's been maybe-ish 10 minutes. How are people doing? Do we want to just continue to use this as work time and continue to go through the documents, or kind of pause and discuss?
I'm about 3/4 through.
Yeah, I can maybe do with another 5 minutes or so just to get through.
Okay, let's give people another
I'm-
5 minutes.
I'm 3/4 of the way through the first page, so but I was away, so sorry, and I'm doing some detail. Sorry.
Fair forewarning, Mike, it gets more interesting as you go.
You don't want to say things like that to me.
Okay, time for another check-in. People ready for discussion or still making good progress editing? Let me see a show of virtual hands for those who would like to move to discussion. I see 0 virtual, no, I see 1 hand, 2 hands.
I struggle to find the virtual hand, so take mine as an
All right, and now I see several. All right, I didn't give people enough time to switch away. Okay, I see several hands. Why don't we pause the active review time? But I love that we lost nobody from the call during the quiet work time, and made actual progress in here. I was focused mostly on C. Looks like there's also comments now in B. Why
I
don't we
didn't
go
realize
ahead and
there were others to look at. I only looked at the very first one. So
yeah, and that's fine. We weren't all of us going to get through both of the docs, so
I did C, sorry. That was the first one I saw listed.
that's nothing to be sorry about. We intentionally let people kind of self-divide across both docs, so hopefully we got some good crowd sourcing of feedback. Alec, is your hand still raised just to indicate your interest in going to conversation, or you had something you wanted to chime in with?
Oops, it's down now.
Okay. All right, since I've got B up first, why don't we take a gander through this one? Maybe we'll kind of just start with if anybody has maybe high-level directional feedback, like, hey, maybe this document would be substantially better if we completely change the direction. Anything like that, otherwise then we can step into some individual stuff.
What's the goal here, Dan? Are you just looking for a vote to get the tax approval to post this thing, or what are we trying to?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
no, that's good. So what's the goal here is to get a first review of each of these documents and then go through an iteration period like we did with NIST documents or any of the other documents that we've created in the past. Depending on how much feedback there is over the next 2-week cycle, we can decide if we need another one of those iterations or if we're ready to collectively approve the document. But the goal is definitely not to approve the document today. It's just to get that, make sure that everybody has dug into it and we're starting to generate feedback.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, certainly for B, it's definitely not in a ready to go state yet, but that directional and specific feedback is useful.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to admit, I focused in the last 10 minutes on C, but I wanted to also, because I thought B would be next. But anyway, my only comment there is also I would add already existing things in there. I don't see any reference like CNCF's Trusty, which is about secure key release and KMS integration. And so, yeah, I think that's a thing or a question, right? On the C one, I saw more reference of what is already there. And that's a part I couldn't find instantly on that one. It's more focused on what, if you look at page, what is it? It doesn't have page numbers, but it's focused on what does Azure, AWS, and GCP do. But I think it would be better to highlight what the community is doing, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think we said on the previous review this. I mean, it is slightly tilted by the fact that I work for Microsoft. So if we've got other things like that in here, then if we can get them tagged in the document in terms of those projects, I can certainly look at getting involved in them.
Right. So, I mean, I will comment on that. I didn't find time yet, but I will prioritize it. But I would like to add things like CNCF trustee and also the secure release I need to validate, right? I mean, we also have other aspects with the hardware security module and such in the context of confidential computing. So it might be worth mentioning that one as well.
I think that when we're adding examples, we need to be careful to be clear that this is a snapshot in time. And, we expect as the ecosystem develops for that to expand. So as long as we're clear about that and to make it clear that we're not highlighting particular ones because we think they're better.
Yeah, so our general rule of thumb is it's fair to reference open source projects, and it's a little bit dicier to mention proprietary ones. I'm open to discussion if there's, if it's meaningful for people to understand, like, as I adopt this in a CSP, these things exist. I think that might be worthwhile. Nicholas, you were going to say something more?
No, it was just like if you scroll down to page number 4 at the 5 at the bottom, right? It basically points out what was said. That's a subset of the commercial, and there are only 3, right? And there are more, right?
I see. Yeah, so one way to do this.
We also have the interesting question about AWS here, which someone may have highlighted, right?
So there's a couple ways that we could approach this. We just have some open discussion. Like, one way is to try to exhaustively cover everybody. It's going to be impossible to actually get everybody, but maybe they get enough of everybody that's fair. I don't know. Another way is that if a company is a CCC member company, then it's okay to list their technology with their involvement. And then another way would just be to refer to these things in the abstract without mentioning specific examples.
So what you're saying is that, and that was the question that I had, if we have a commercial solution for that problem, is this page open for such?
Mike, you're muted.
Mike, you're mute.
I think we need to check with the LF here. We've got rules about social media stuff, but I don't know what the rules are in terms of this sort of document. And I wouldn't want us to rat hole on a particular approach if it turns out the LF wouldn't allow it, that sort of thing.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. So a follow-up question is whether what's coming from the cloud service providers is also in the realm of, commercial solutions and not open source solutions. So I think that it should have the same level.
That is indeed difficult. Yes, we need to work out where that sits as well. So I think we need to work with the LF.
Yeah, we would be consistent with that. Yeah, there wouldn't be a special exception for super large companies.
Does someone go to contact?
Potentially, it would be more about a conceptual flow rather than individual implementations, in my opinion. Right.
That's always safer.
Yeah,
Usama has a hand up.
Usama?
Yeah, thank you. I see that the same problems exist that I always point out. For example, in C, if you blueprint C, at the top, for example, I've given a comment that
Could I ask you to just hold blueprint C feedback while we're looking at blueprint B?
Sorry, say again?
Could we finish up on blueprint B and then we can go over to B after that?
Okay, sure. So for blueprint B, for example, here there's a mention of VTPM, and VTPM is basically not hardware rooted. As you know, that's a virtual thing. And I don't quite follow the comment that's given there, because even if that's in the boot chain very early, it doesn't imply that it's hardware rooted. VTPM by itself is not hardware rooted. It's a piece of software. Wherever you place it in, the placing itself doesn't matter, right? I don't really follow that and would like to discuss this point.
Everything that's measured by the hardware attestation chain is hardware rooted.
Hardware
Right?
doesn't
If
measure
it
the
has
VTPM, right?
the hardware does measure the VTPM.
So
That's
do
the
you
whole
have a
point of a
reference for me?
But
VTPM. The
VTPM
VTPM
has meant different things over the years, to be clear. I think it's turned
it
out to mean what you're talking about here, Nathaniel. But
yeah, so
previously,
the in the context of SVSM on SEV, the VTPM instance is measured by the AMD secure processor during VM instantiation and is included in the attestation report. And the key, which it's used, the EK that is used, the public key, is also included in the report data field and is part of the attestation report. And it's isolated by SEV, which is the hardware isolation. So it has hardware-based isolation and it has hardware-based measurement. So I don't think it's unfair to say that it is hardware rooted.
Yeah, and
Okay, can you?
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go.
No, I was going to say, I mean, again, this might be a more kind of bias from the way we implement this, but yeah, I mean, that's certainly where I took those references from our internal docs to put this together.
Yeah, I would like to see a reference which kind of describes this in more detail to be sure about this, what you are saying, because I don't think it can be hardware rooted. So I would like to see like a authentic reference for this, and that's in general applies not only to this, like in general to this document, that there are no references which for some of the arguments I would have liked to see some authentic reference being quoted that it's actually coming from somewhere and not just from the top of our head.
So this should all be documented in the SVSM repository, and you can go read the docs there.
I think it's fair though to include references.
Yeah, I was just trying to find out. This might be a Google Docs thing. I was just trying to put a note for myself to comment on a comment. I'm not entirely certain if you can do that, but yeah, like I mean, I can certainly link the reference material from there if it's not already in there.
I think I can add you, maybe.
Maybe it's just a user error on my part.
Okay, I'll mention you here.
I don't think you can nest comments, Simon.
I think you can. Maybe you're not logged in, Simon.
I am logged in as something. No, I'm logged in with my Google account. Maybe it's just user error. Maybe I'm clicking in the wrong place.
Okay. Well, anyway, you can see yourself there. I do think though that like we don't really rely on TPM measurement. We rely on there is some sort of hardware factor in the confidential computing implementation.
I think that it really depends on the cloud, for example. Different clouds with different technologies have different solutions.
Yeah, I've got my hand up. I was going to say exactly that same thing, and I think Usama's comment is fair. The VTP, the word VTPM is kind of implementation dependent, based on the CSP's approach to that, and CSP's approaches are very different, and the security posture that they provide are different. And Nathaniel mentioned SVSM, which is a specific implementation, which has its own security properties. So it's possible that Nathaniel was answering Usama's question with a very specific example, and maybe we need for each of the members here that are representing hyperscalers to kind of put together a document that explains the security properties of each, and then the open source projects can do the same, and then customers can take a look and see which VTPM they like or don't like and provide feedback. The last thing I'll say is that at least some CSPs, and I think that's what Simon was talking about, do include measurements of the VTPM that's used inside the T in the attestation evidence. And I think you could say that that means it's hardware based, but that's open for debate. So I think we need more specific terms here. And as long as I'm talking, the reason I raised my hand is because I kind of want to ask the TAC chair to please consider allowing active participants and members of the CCC to include their own implementations in examples in docs such as this, because that's why we're members of the CCC, is to be able to explain our technologies. And I think it benefits the community to understand what is commercially available out there. So I would ask that we not eliminate the use for premier members or other voting members to include their own solutions in these documents.
Yeah, I think as Mike said, we
Sorry.
might have to double check LF rules, but we should make
and there will almost certainly be no difference between general members and premier members in terms of how that works. And we just need to find out what's allowed. Sorry, I had my hand up for something else, which was in response to the TPM thing, which is that I absolutely don't mean to suggest that Usama is wrong on this, because I do think that the phrase VTPM means at least two different things, and we need to be very explicit about which we mean. There was kind of drift over sort of about a 3 or 4 year period, I think, as between those two things. So we should be very explicit about the hardware-based nature of these things. And I do believe that some of them absolutely do exist, but there have been entirely software-based things which are just placed into confidential VMs, for instance, which just appear and can be used by the VM, but don't actually provide any link back to the TEE underpinnings and attestation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ophir?
Yeah, a few things. One thing first, I put it as an initial comment in the chat. If you can change the permissions to these documents so people cannot edit them but just suggest, because otherwise,
I
by
don't
mistake,
think
we
it's
can edit.
possible. It's editor or commenter or viewer. And if you're an editor, you can either edit or suggest. I don't think there's a way
Yeah, but I think that we should be commenters and not editors. That's Simon owns the document. He can be okay, whatever you decide. And the other thing that is related to this discussion is that, as we discussed last time about Dan's document about workloads and security of workloads, I think that here as well, it should be mentioned what do we trust with different solutions. So because a lot of it is cloud-based and cloud service providers based, one thing is the TPM that should be clear what is the level of, whether it's hardware or software level of trust. And the other one is we call it codename launch measurements. Those are things that we just get from the cloud service provider for the firmware measurements and stuff like that we cannot really analyze and say, yes, we looked at the code, we trust it. It's just in the CSP we trust, which is okay, but it should be mentioned as those are the levels when you're doing that on-prem or a bare metal machine. This is what you are trusting when you are doing that in the cloud.
Yeah. So I think the main takeaway is people would like to see more specificity around these measurement terms and approaches. So if we kind of capture that as one area of feedback, are there other areas of feedback in Blueprint B that we should spend some time on before moving on to C?
Sorry.
Just a general comment. So I thought that you don't trust the CSP as you use confidential computing. So that part is surprising to me, that we now assume we trust the CSPs.
I think there's different viewpoints on that. I don't know that there's a consistent view. I think what we try to do is remove the infrastructure operator, be that an IT department or a CSP, much of the TCB as required. But I know that things like the talk that we're going to have on, I forgot the title of the talk that we're going to have today, but that kind of relies upon the infrastructure operator to associate the location of the device or their possession of the device with the attestation.
So it removes under that model a certain subset of operators, but it does not remove other subsets of operators.
And trust to do what, right? You
and for how long?
Trust. Yeah, all of those things.
And CSP is just too wide, in my opinion.
Sure. I think Usama's hand is up first in the queue.
Yeah, quickly following up on the same point that's being discussed. Number one, that the attestation key that's written here signs the measurements that's not in the hardware. That's attestation key is with the software. That means basically the coating enclave is a piece of software. It's not a hardware. So this also needs to be clarified. And my strong opinion is that unless the how to say, like, these side channel attacks get fixed by the the hardware vendors providing these trusted execution environments, it's not possible at all to remove the CSPs from the trusted computing base at all. Whatever your definition of, I agree with Fritz, like it's broad, but dividing it even as, let's say, one part or two parts, so you cannot claim that the CSP itself as a whole is out of the TCB unless these physical attacks are taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you still have another comment?
Yeah, I do. And the comment is this. This is supposed to be a guide to help people actually implement stuff. We cannot go into the sort of level of detail about launch measurements and all these sorts of things in this document. If we believe these are important, and I absolutely do, we need to come up with a new document, maybe, but something we can point at from these other documents, which lays out what we mean by trust and what levels of trust and what we think is plausible. And Dan, your document does some of this, right? Absolutely. Because we mustn't have all of this in these documents, because as soon as we put this stuff into this sort of document, it becomes completely unusable. I would even say things like MR Enclave and MR Signer in this document is probably too much detail, right? Because we want stuff that someone who is a technically knowledgeable but not expert in TEs can use, and we're moving further and further away from that, and I think that's a dangerous thing. Yes, we should have some base documents we point at, but these should not be them, they, whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for the reframing, Mike. Yeah, that's good to keep in mind. What we're trying to do is help potential adopters find their way to solutions with these documents. So enough information to point them accurately in the right direction without turning them away because they suddenly have to read a 100-page research paper. Alec.
Totally agree with what Mike just said about making sure that this document is kept at a high level. I think the reason Nicholas is, raised good questions, and Usama as well, is because the original documents that we have are terminology white papers that are the seminal documents in the CCC were written in the era of Coffee Lake, SGX enclaves, and they had more guarantees about the amount of isolation you get from the CSP operator than you get in confidential VMs. I think that's a fact. Certainly T.fail proved that in a laboratory setting. So you have to trust the CSP at the very least to provide physical security around the machine. I think our original papers were written in the era where we assumed that somehow wouldn't be necessary. So that, I think, speaks to the need to go back maybe and read those documents to bring them up to current understanding. Once we've done that, then we can just reference those documents from here, and it'll keep us from, getting confused.
Thank you. Simon.
Yeah, I think actually mine's probably going to be really a +1 of what Mike and Alex said. I know certainly we've spent a long time internally discussing the whole, where does the cloud service provider sit in that kind of chain of trust for everything? There's an epic of that if you want to put that together. But we can certainly make reference to some of that and tidy up some of the things. So, but thanks everybody for feedback. It's been really useful so far.
Yeah. Great to have everybody's feedback here. So I think we've kind of beaten VTPM and CSP trust to death. More edits are necessary to fix those. Do we have other topics?
I think that, Usama. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very quick. I agree with Mike and Alec and Simon. So I'm not saying that we should go into the full detail of all these things. So just to very quickly clarify my thing, I'm just saying that phrasing should be correct. That's pretty much I'm saying. And there should be a reference that might be a research paper or something that might be 100 pages, Dan, as you were saying. But we are not forcing people to read that. That's just a reference that whatever we are saying is actually correct, and it should not be like this fluffy marketing stuff that hey, this is hardware based and all that. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying to go into the 100-page long detail of attestation, just it should be accurate. That's my only point. Thanks.
Yep. Sounds good. Okay, so I don't see other outstanding feedback for B that we haven't at least touched upon. So why don't we switch over to C? So I think as far as like high level feedback, first of all, like I should have said when we started off with the blueprint B, thanks so much to the authors. So Renee and Mingshen in this case for producing all this content, and for Simon in the last document. High level, it feels a bit on the long side to me. And so one of my observations, just kind of going through the introduction, is over 1 page. So maybe kind of crushing that down to fit at least within a page, maybe less would be ideal. Other high level feedback. So if we kind of do this in a if you imagine like a binary search kind of thing, where we're doing like big strides across data, then narrower and narrower. Are there any sort of like other big directional pieces of feedback? Usama is first in the queue here.
Right. So I had a general impression that this document specifically is making a lot of claims and they are not backed by the references that I would have liked to see. For example, it's saying that the trust is decoupled from the CSP, the same point that I raised there. I would like to see, for example, I have put my reference in from the research, which is to say that we believe, I won't repeat, I mean, I have already claimed that. So that's what I would like to see, either proof that our research is wrong. I'm fairly acceptable to that. Our research can be wrong, that's fine. Or otherwise provide justified response or something like that, or accept that it is the case that CSP cannot be within the TCB, or the trust is not decoupled from the CSP. That's not pretty much what we are providing here. I think then I have another comment on some other page I have to find, but I will find that and then come back.
Okay.
Some of you also had some questions on the ISVs mentioned and as examples. So I wasn't sure how many and who should we mention. There were, I think, two were previous CCC members and one is a current CCC member, but I didn't feel
Again, I
like
think we're going to need to go back to the LF and find out exactly what the rules are on that. So
yep.
Okay, but maybe this was less about whether it's appropriate and more about like are these projects active?
If you scroll lower, there were a couple of 3 ISVs also mentioned.
Oh, I see.
So I personally didn't feel like we should be limited by the CCC membership or lack thereof, but there will be a follow-up there.
Well, I would suggest that if we mention people, we go to them and say, look, we're going to be thinking of mentioning you in a paper. How about you join? That's the approach I'd probably take. Or rejoin.
Yeah, I do think we have some interest that many of you aren't exposed to, that just as far as the health of the organization, that we do rely on membership, and we're looking for ways to have companies see
Consolidate.
value in their membership. So
Yeah.
I would certainly consider that as a factor. Osama?
Right. On this specific page where you are, for example, like it says independent software vendors, right? And I don't believe, for example, that they are independent because they are members of the
So
CCC. Is that it?
ISV means is a general term in the industry, meaning that they are not associated with the people who are taking their software. So ISV is a well-known technical, well-known industry term, and doesn't suggest they're not part of the CCC at all.
Yeah, it just means like third-party software vendor.
It's like IHV for independent hardware vendor.
I didn't quite follow that. So you are saying that they are independent of what?
Yeah, so don't worry about what the term implies. It's literally just an industry term. ISV, OSV,
Yeah,
IHV, OEM. These are just there's not really a specific meaning to the independent part of it.
So basically it means you could buy software from them if you are IBM or JPMC or whatever, and they are not you. They're independent of you. That's all it means. It's a very, very well-known term in the industry. So I've just put a link in from Google.
But it's fair. It's not a term that I learned in computer science classes. It's something that I came to learn after sitting in many meetings wondering, what is an ISV? Why do people keep talking about
100%. Yeah.
But it can be misinterpreted. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
I think anyone reading this
it's
document will not from anyone in our expected audience is extremely unlikely to misinterpret this. It would be very, very strange for us to say to do anything about specifying this.
Yeah.
So Mike, you are saying that we should not the academia should
room implementations, right? It's done, right?
Okay, let's move on to more feedback. Why don't I kind of scroll up to the top, and we can kind of go top down, and then in the future, people can help remind me, like we'll kind of over edit the top of the paper and then never leave time for the bottom of the paper, but let's go ahead and start at the top today, and we'll spend more time on the later sections in subsequent meetings. So there's just some word nitpicking that I put up at the front just to kind of set the context that this isn't really like a specification. This is like a reference architecture. I was thinking rather than, for some reason, we tend to shy away sometimes from using the confidential computing term and then start talking about TEs. We may as well just call them confidential computing. All right, what do we have here?
That's been a shift over the last couple of years, which is a positive one in my view.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my comments, as you're just highlighting them right now, were I think for me it is also in this case that you have people connecting, you need to authenticate, as well as there might be multiple KMSs, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. When I read it through, it sounded a little bit like, and because it comes up and it has attestation, it has like that one key. And from my perspective, depending on who connects, there might be different keys and different accesses being done. And that's why I highlighted on the policy one, the whole sentence for me was just too strict of this thing comes up and has all the keys it needs without somebody authenticating or providing him additional authority. That was my, and it's also on the encrypted data source below. I put a similar comment if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Just adding basically authentication beside the policies would be my proposal.
Okay. Yeah, let's think about how to word that without kind of blowing out that paragraph. Because that I understand and agree that like you wouldn't decrypt code or you wouldn't decrypt data, but for multiple things being true simultaneously. And the attestation is one of those things, but it is not the only thing. Is that sort of your meaning?
Yeah, and as well as we have use cases where as one legal entity is basically connecting to ET, is giving it additional authority to basically add data from that group. And if he disconnects, the enclave again doesn't have access to it, right? It is not purely that all keys are basically provided to, but you might have things where authentication is needed in addition. For me, it's another layer right within the clean room that you have it. And you saw it in the encrypted data sources. It might be that as somebody authenticates, then he gives for this time also access to keys, or his KMS is releasing keys such that you could upload something or do a derivation of it. Right?
Nicholas, how's the text that I've just suggested?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I had something similar with through cryptographic or other zero and other proofs, but yeah, authentication is one aspect. Yeah.
Well. How's that? There we go.
Okay. Yeah. I'll try to think about that more offline. I want us to be as succinct as possible.
Policies can be quite complex, but they should at least include this, I think. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We talked about the CSP language, and then right. So this was talking about not having interactive logins, and so I think maybe
I think that's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that's recognized then in the comment.
So this is me saying, this is the way you'd probably do it, but you don't need to do it this way unless you want to make it part of the blueprint. You could ingest rather than open up data sources, right?
Ingest, do you mean in the encrypted way and then? Or...
Well, you could say, give me. Either I could have an encrypted database, right? And you have a KMS which provides a key. Well, we have a KMS which provides a key to it. Or you could provide me with key which allows me to be happy that you are who you say you are. And then I send you a big file encrypted either under a key or via TLS or something, right? So the way it's stored is actually irrelevant to the use case. It's how it's used and ingested and accessed that's important.
But I don't see that being not covered by that, right? It's just in this case, your in the flight encrypted data source comes through some online funnel or stream.
It says specifically that independent entities maintain data sets encrypted with keys managed by their own key management systems. That may be absolutely not the way we do it. It may be that you provide me some authorization. I am happy with that. We agree a key between us, and I send you the data set encrypted under that key. As in, for instance,
I overread with their own. I agree. Sorry, their own. You're right, Mike.
No worries. So I feel free to rewrite this as you wish, Rene. I just didn't want to presuppose a particular architecture and make it a requirement. If I were writing a patent on this, right, this is one of the things I'd say is an alternative implementation. And this is the way I think about what I write about patents. So, of
course, if we're writing this as a patent, it wouldn't be readable by anybody.
No, indeed, but that's a part. Well, they would be readable by a very small bunch of highly paid people who are not us. Yes.
Okay, so I think maybe the
offset in it. So
okay, so these are protected data sources. by independent entities with their own policies for releasing them.
I don't think we need to rewrite this now. I think Rene understands my point, and I'm happy he can find the right words.
Yeah. Okay.
Neutral, what does that mean? I think you mean a place that is mutually acceptable to the various parties. Later down, you say sovereign, and I think we need to be very careful about what that means as well, because it's not defined anywhere. Again, this is just, if I'm reading it for the first time, as I wasn't quite sure what there was room for misunderstanding.
Okay.
Again, sorry for being picky, but again, I'm trying to think of people who are skilled but don't necessarily know the context as well as we do.
On the sovereign KMS, that was only my other one was multiple, right? For me, I agree. The sovereign KMS sound odd as well, because I thought there's not only sovereign KMSs, right?
Yeah, and sovereign is beginning to mean something very specific in the world, so we should be careful.
Yeah, and if it's technical sovereign or operational sovereign or whatever, right?
Exactly, yeah, supply chain sovereignty, yeah, all of those fun things. Yeah, Dan, Osama has his hand up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on this specific point, not on sovereign, I mean in general on this remote attestation and secure key release. The point is that I'm not seeing anywhere in the text that the protocol itself should be secure. That's the whole thing
we need to. Yeah, no, I agree, but we need to have a core document which defines remote attestation as we mean it, and make it clear that in that context, it is secure for our requirements. So I think when we're using remote attestation here, this is shorthand that we understand to mean something specific, which we actually need to define.
Right, that's my only point. I mean, it should write at least somewhere that the protocol used by remote attestation is secure.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be in this document.
I would argue that the statement itself should be in this document. Otherwise, I don't think we are saying that the CCR architecture consists of 4 technical pillars, and I would argue that the protocol itself is one of those pillars. Are you disagreeing with that?
You refer. We say at some point, remote attestation in this document means the following reference, and then it's clear.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to, again, keeping in mind, somebody is trying to consider, if I want to adopt confidential computing, what sort of things am I looking for? I don't want to blow out, there's 4 succinct bullet points here. I think succinctness is important here. Later on in the document, maybe there's a place to get into what these specific protocols are, but the idea is you are using attestation to gate your key release.
And we don't want people reading it and saying, what, there's insecure versions of this technologies? I shouldn't be using it at all. This is too horrible, right? I'm just stepping away from this.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even, I just think like any document about security, of course, these things should be secure. Why would I consider something that wasn't secure?
It's not, of course, people have shown it to be insecure. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, which is we need references 100%.
Okay.
I have a quick question about the remote attestation and secure key release. We cite this pattern in quite a few documents, but we never seem to mention the possibility that remote attestation may provide credentials, and the credentials may provide a secure key release. And I worry about the architectural patterns that this may enforce on the industry.
Agreed.
Where people think that the only way you can do this is to have remote attestation followed immediately by secure key release, but it is quite legitimate to have intermediaries.
Would it be possible to design a whole system based, I don't know, in Rust and WASM to do this sort of thing? Nathaniel? and maybe make it an open source
I mean,
project which can be donated to the CCC. Asking for friends.
Such could have been done. I'm not sure.
What a novel idea.
For those of you who don't know, NARCS does this.
Yeah, but I for that whole thing, remote attestation secure key release, I added a link to the already mentioned CNCF trustee project, where exactly these components are being combined as an open source product. So we have a reference. Beyond that, I do agree that remote attestation is not the only way to release secure keys. There are multiple others ways.
He wasn't even saying
acknowledge
that.
that within
Nicholas,
the
I think
CCC, it's about attestation, but secure release.
Yeah,
is not
no.
one.
So, Nicholas, no, I think to be clear here, Nathaniel is not saying you don't do attestation. I think what he's saying is that attestation doesn't lead directly necessarily to secure key release. It's quite possible that this is the first step in an authentication process, which may or may not, based on other possible policy or other steps or measures or processes, lead to key release. It's just, it's a very, it's having it as a one step can paint your mind into a particular way of thinking, which restricts how the industry might do things, and I think that would be a pity. I'm with Nathaniel on this.
Yeah, that's roughly what I'm suggesting, right? It's not even just secure key release, right? This is about confidential data, secrets, right? One of those is a key, but there's other kinds of data as well. It's also about privileged operations. So the general pattern is we want the release of secrets and privileged operations to be gated by remote attestation. But that gating doesn't need to be direct, because there's 1,000,001 protocols and privileged operations and secrets out there that already use existing mechanisms. And to have to redesign all of them to do remote attestation, people are going to see that that's a pretty big burden. So by simply mentioning that every time we mention this pattern, that there can be intermediaries, this makes it a much more palatable system to deploy within traditional IT architectures. So I'm trying to do two things. I'm trying to A, make it clear that this is easier to adopt than rewriting everything. And B, I'm trying to make sure that people don't get into their heads, we have to go rewrite everything. And so they go start rewriting everything.
Okay. Yep. All right, let's scroll down a little bit to get to some new material. All right, this looks like a clarification on just consistency of terminology.
Who was agreeing with me there? I'm glad that you did agree, but who was agreeing with me on the?
I did.
Oh, right. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay. I'm not quite sure what this is getting at.
My point is that when I read that, it was focused on highly controlled physical environments used in silicon wafer fabrications and data clean rooms. And my point was just, as we have the other with the KMS and the key release, also for these ceremonies, you're using secure rooms to initiate a hardware security module. And this you could also replace by concepts of confidential computing and multi-party computation to initiate these things. And I could have basically marked all the three. I just marked. It's not about like only privacy compliant virtual sandboxes and such. It was just there are other ceremonies and contract signing where people get into so-called clean rooms, right? With the same concept.
Okay. Let's see here.
And on the use cases, and I wasn't sure how high level should we go here, how kind of inspirational
Okay.
Should we? So we can shorten this dramatically, of course. This way, it just provides potential inspiration to readers where they can use these, but obviously not necessarily strictly necessary.
Yeah, I don't know. I open to everybody else's feedback, but it seems like a decent amount of. It doesn't seem overwhelming. Like maybe if they're just listed up front, and then if readers don't want to read through them, they can just skip ahead to section 4.
There's another way of looking at this. Then that we do have a use cases document published by Outreach, and we could use some more pieces in there. Maybe it's a good place to add to that. It's always an open document, and then we could cut this down a bit and refer to that document from here. Just a thought. If we're trying to restrict the amount of number of words.
Okay, well, let's all have a think on that. I'm comfortable
easy either way. Just a thought.
So long as people can.
So in Ming Shen's point at the bottom, when he says, I'm thinking of contents of clearing some privacy techniques like DP synthetic, and it also is to be applied. I think one of the points about CC is that you don't need to go to extraordinary lengths and risk things like lack of data accuracy if you're using CC, because you don't need to worry about things like synthetic data being fully, I can't remember the right word, but coherent and correct. So you can say, yes, we can combine them, but also there's fidelity is a good word. Thank you. Yes, Renee. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that's where I was also a little bit pushing back on.
Hi, Tom.
This has links to all of the documents when I'm pasting it into the chat.
Yeah, I just put a link into. Oh, well done. You've got all of them there. That's good.
Oh,
That's fine.
well, thank you. All right. I think this is good progress for today in these documents. So let's just all kind of take the action item now that we've gotten a start here to spend more time over the next 1 to 2 weeks and get some more feedback into these. And then we'll have a little bit more time in the next meeting to go over them. Let me just jump back to.
Yeah, thanks for curating this work, Dan. I think it's really, really valuable. And sometimes, yeah, taking sort of 10, 15 minutes out of a meeting can really yield a lot of good work, which we've done, I think, right? So thank you.
I can't tell you how happy I am that we had like quiet work time and we were all productive. I know that if we said like, oh, we'll just end the meeting 30 minutes early and everybody can go look at the document, that we would all just go find email. So
No, of course we wouldn't, Dan. We'd do exactly what you told us to do.
Okay. Maybe some of what we were talking about is what ended up in future business here as this codification paper. I don't remember where that got in. So that's something that we can kind of put into the queue for the Q2.
Can I add something possibly to that, actually, which is comes from a discussion that Alec was having, and Nelly, who I think in the GB, but it caught my interest, and I've tried to think about it a bit out of that, which is that we have in the good old days, right? A TE was a TE. You had a single TE, and that was it, right? And then some annoying people came up with with TEs in GPUs, and we realized that we needed to have some sort of trust fabric across them. So we came up with TDISP and all those sorts of things, right? And I'm not sure. So that's thing one, right? And I'm not sure we yet have a name for a TE conglomerate thing, which includes multiple things of those on the same machine, which all are part of the same trust fabric, right? And then there's also a bigger thing where you might actually have multiple TEs on multiple machines, some GPU based, some NPU, some DPU, some CPU, talking to each other, some coming in and out of trust, some being removed, some being revoked. And that's a kind of a different thing, right? And managing that and having a word for that. Yeah, so TE mesh, TE fabric, and I don't know, but I think we're at the stage now where these questions are coming up. And because I heard Alec and Nelly saying similar words and meaning different things, it occurred to me that now is kind of a good time to be thinking about this sort of stuff. And I think about sort of what's it called, HLC or HTC, really high, big bits and pieces, right? Where you're working across multiple machines, and that we've been doing that for quite a while, but we need to be able to do the same thing with TEs. But we need to understand about timeliness, about revocation, about attestation, about how you establish that trust. What is the mechanism that is in charge? Is it a Byzantine fault tolerance mechanism where you have a mesh or whatever, and things can be taken out, and then you do reattestation? I don't know. And I think this is a really interesting topic to think about. And just coming up with some names for some of these things and agreeing what we think they should be would be a good thing for the community. And yeah, if we're looking for Ming Shen, I know is looking for, we're looking at the research fund. Maybe this is something we could put down as a research area. What this sort of stuff looks like, I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry to just drop that in, but I've started talking about it in presentations, and I wanted to drop it into this conversation. Alec has his hand up because I'm probably misrepresenting him now.
No, I totally want to agree with what you're saying. I just want to make sure that we keep separate the topic of a composite. We've been calling it a composite device, but this needs to go into our terminology document. It needs to have a formal definition so that we don't, talk past one another by just not agreeing on the definition of terms. But we need to talk about the things that are a specific device that is, on silicon. And then when you've got multiple silicon devices all on inside the same chassis, and I'm using words very sloppily here, but if you've got multiple pieces of silicon inside the same chassis, like you've got a GPU and you've got a NIC and you've got a CPU inside the same chassis, then that's one thing. And then when we're talking about a mesh, and all I know about meshes is, what I've been learning from Hush Mesh, where it's, there's a network component that's involved. We need another term for that. All of these things we need to kind of name and figure out what to call them so that we can talk about them.
Yeah, we came up for the terminology document with these different pictures of things. Maybe we need to do the same for this sort of these different conglomerations.
Yeah. All good stuff for us to get work underway on. Now for next meeting, Ahmed is up. So Kevin, I don't know if you can poke Ahmed, make sure that he's prepared. But for everybody's benefit, for their turns, we have a TAC stand-up meeting for the chairs on Mondays, and we do that every week. So even though that we have this meeting every other week, we meet weekly so that we can kind of get the agendas staged and follow up on opens and things like that. So it'll be Monday morning.
And sorry, and not to talk over your hand, Usama, just to finish my previous statement, I meant to add, Year in his ISO draft is already talking. He's got pictures of these composite devices, and they're already kind of putting some terms in ISO working group for drafts. So I think the timing is perfect for us to jump in and start the discussion. Sorry, didn't mean to speak over your hand there, Usama.
Go ahead, Usama.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Scott's talk. So is it already decided when that's going to be? Because I was interested in that. So is it already known when that will be scheduled?
Not 100%. I'm not sure if he's planning on rescheduling for the next session or not. This sort of just happened in the wee hours of the morning here. So what I try to do normally is send the TAC agenda multiple days before the TAC meeting so people have enough notice. So we'll follow up as soon as we're able.
Yeah, I actually saw that in the agenda today, so I was expecting him to talk. So if there is
Yeah,
a
it was a
change in the
last minute
agenda, it would be nice.
cancellation, Osama. It was
Okay.
literally overnight. He was unable to do it as he had a family emergency, so that's why it was very short
Sure.
notice.
Sure, fine, thanks.
Okay, well, I think I can let people actually go get to their email and their coffee now. So
I have one final thing, sorry,
Yes.
Dan, which is that I'm going to be at RSA next week. If you are going to be at RSA, or you have colleagues who are going to be at RSA who I should be meeting, or ecosystem partners or customers, it would be useful for me to pop round. Please, please, please let me know, and I would be delighted to meet up with you or them or whoever it would be. And I will report back if I find anything interesting there.
Very good idea, Mike. Let us meet and during RSA.
Sounds good. Send me an email,
Yes.
send me a Slack, whatever it may be.
Yeah, so maybe find a room or a place we can all meet, a restaurant, whatever you want.
Works for me.
All right, well, thanks again for everybody's engagement, and we will bring this meeting to a close.
Another great meeting, folks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.